Good evening and welcome to the EKU Alumni Spotlight Series, where we talk with former EKU students from all around the country and all around the world about some of the amazing things that they are doing to make this a better country, a better world, a better place to live. My name is Dan McBride, Associate Vice President for Alumni Engagement here at EKU, and we have a great show tonight. But before we get to tonight's guest, I want to tell you a little bit about some things that are coming up as we move into the month of February. We have some more exciting virtual events planned for you. First up, our next Alumni Spotlight Series will come up on February 9th. That is 2 weeks from tonight. We will have Steve Crump, former EKU student and EKU alum who was recently inducted into the Kentucky Journalism Hall of Fame, a distinguished career in both radio and television. Steve will be our guest on February 9th. And then 2 weeks later, on February 23rd, we'll be having Gail Dent, who's had a great career with the NCAA in Indianapolis. Gail, an EKU alum, will be our guest on February 23rd. Also coming up, we have another edition of the Colonel's Kitchen. And this go around, we will be featuring how to do a Kentucky hot brown, and also in honor of Valentine's Day, a very special romantic dessert. That's all coming up on the Colonel's Kitchen, February 17th. All of that information available on the EKU alumni events page at alumni.eku.edu. But tonight, we are back in the Alumni Spotlight Series, and this is an exciting one for me because our guest tonight is a guy who I had not seen in 40 years. But he was a student at EKU in the late 70s, early 80s, has built a great career in radio, and has actually later in life now found a gig in acting. You may have seen him in a commercial for the Super Bowl. You may have seen him on the Netflix hit series Bloodline. He has over 50 different production credits to his resume, and we are very excited to have him with us here tonight. Let's welcome into the studio Mr. Bill Kelly. Bill.
Hey there.
Welcome.
How are you? It is
great.
So good
Thank you.
After this long. Dan
yeah,
and
so
I
let's
way back.
yeah, let's tell the story. You were working at WEKY, and I had just got hired as a new DJ. And you actually were the guy who trained me to be on the air. And I think my first night ever on the radio, you were there with me.
Yeah, I remember vividly being there. It was kind of funny because that was my first job. And I don't know if you did the same thing that I did, but back in that day, you didn't have fancy, laptops with computers and the ability to cool edit and do all this fun stuff. You really had to work hard to get up some basic air check. And I put together an air check with 2 turntables and a cassette player. I think one of my songs was my dad's album, Ring of Fire, the Johnny Cash song. That's how I put together my air check. How was yours, Dan?
Yeah, mine was not very good. I distinctly remember that night. I was very proud because I think I only started 2 records on the wrong speed that night, which is your first times on the radio. That's a very common mistake. People don't realize. Back then we were playing records.
Yeah, 45s. My first my first break, it was kind of funny because I decided I was going to go in and change my name, and I was going to get a radio name. So I developed the name Bill Bradley. And the boss called me up. He's like, "What are you doing?" I said, "I needed a radio name." He says, "Dummy, you got a radio name." So I was Bill Bradley for one break, and that was it. But the very first break I did was, and I'll never forget this as long as I live, I played Jerry and the Pacemakers, Ferry Cross the Mersey.
Ferry Cross the Mercy. Great song.
I forgot who it was. So I'm looking, and Dan, you've done this. Look over the turntable and you're doing this, trying to read the label as it spins around. Never works. And I blurted out a bad word, and luckily nobody heard it because I was away from the mic at the time. And then I took my headphones off, and Dan will know what I'm talking about. When you take your headphones off and there's no sound in the room, that's a bad thing.
Yeah, I was Dan Scott my first night on the air, and then we both worked for the same guy, Bill Walters, who owned the radio station at that time. He called me and he said, "Why in the world? Who's Dan Scott?" He said, "I hired you because you're local and people will know you, and it doesn't do me any good if you don't use your real name. So use your real name, son." So, but those were some good days. Now, and you took that radio career and kind of that radio start and launched it into a career, really.
Yeah, it's kind of notorious when you get into radio. You spend your entire life trying to get to bigger markets and trying to get bigger, better airtime, day parts. And so it's, Richmond's a starting point, and then you want to go to Lexington and maybe Cincinnati and Chicago and try to step up and be big markets. And I ended up going to Lexington was at the time 100 WFMI, 100
FMI.
And it was top 40 radio station at the time, with a little bit of rock mixed in with it. We were going up against 98 Rock Double Q. And I went from there to Iowa. That was 3 months I'll never get back. And once I realized that I don't like cold weather, I moved back to Kentucky, moved to South Georgia. I was there for a short time and then came to Tallahassee in 86. And I've been here since 1986. I was 25 years old.
That is hard to believe. That's a long time. And since then, you've moved out of on-air work now, and you are an account rep and doing sales mostly, right?
Yeah, I got off the air in 2000. I was the program director, the music director. It's country radio, so I had a lot of opportunities to meet a lot of people and go see a lot of great things in my career. Got off the air in 2000, went into the sales department, and have been in that for now 21 years. And it's a good living. I still go do commercials and jump back on the air every once in a while when I want to play radio. But spun that off and did a lot of mobile DJ stuff as well.
But now you grew up in Richmond, right? Aren't you a Richmond native?
I am a Richmond. I was born in Paris, and I moved to Richmond right after my father was an Air Force sergeant. And as soon as we got back from Germany for his deployment over there, we went to Richmond, and he worked at our Bluegrass Army Depot. And I lived in Richmond, lived in Robbinsville, and then later Hilltop Acres. Went to Madison Central, graduated in 79, went to EKU. So yeah, Waco Elementary. So I got back up there a couple of years ago and, did the tour and looked at all the stuff. And I wish I could get back more. I really miss it up there.
Well, those of us who are up here wish we could get to Tallahassee more because you're having much better weather.
It was rainy today, but yesterday it was like 75 degrees. So it was very funny. Hey, son.
Well, we had a good day today. Actually, we had nice weather today, but we had a miserable day yesterday, and it's going to snow tomorrow. So, let's talk a little bit. Let's talk about this acting thing, because you had a great career in radio. Everything was going fine. And so how did the acting thing come about? Did you just wake up one day and decide it was something you wanted to do?
Being in radio, you get every PSA that comes over the fax machine at that time, or is sent by email now. So it's like, there's a fish fry. You're going to get a fax on it. You're going to get a PSA. Somebody wants to get their stuff on the air. Excuse me. And I happened to be standing by the fax machine at the time, and I will never forget this day. This fax came over from Florida State University's film school, which is, I give them so much credit for everything I've been able to do, because I went down and I said, I'm going to do this. And I went down and auditioned for student films, and got picked up and did some good parts. And then after about 30 films of doing that, I got divorced at the time and said, I'm going to try to make it into, see if I can get an agent. And then if you've watched the series Cobra Kai on Netflix, a friend of mine is Homeless Lynn, Susan
Oh yeah.
Gallagher. And she and I had done a short film together at Florida State. And then we didn't have any scenes together, but we have the same agent. So I called her up and got a referral. And, and she turned me on to her agent, Tracy at Brevard Talent in Orlando. Went down and read for her, and just kind of went from there.
So would you say that your first big break or your first big role was Recount?
Well, no. Recount was, it was kind of an odd situation, because I was fascinated with everything that went on behind the scenes. So Recount came to town with Kevin Spacey, John Hurt, Laura Dern was in it, and it was based on the Florida situation. Now I can't remember the election, 84 election.
The Gore Bush.
Yeah, the Gore Bush election and the hanging Chad. And they shot some of that in Tallahassee because, of course, that's where all the hoopla was centered around after everything fell apart with that. And so I had the opportunity to be a reporter, have an on-scene piece, and I really opted for being a stand-in for John Hurt, because I wanted to see how a production was done. I'd done 30 films, prior to that, student films, and I really wanted to see what the professional part of that really was. So it enabled me to get behind the scenes and hang out with the crew and the cast and get a good look. And boy, was I ever bit after that one. That was a great experience.
So what then, where would you credit as your first big break or your first major splash into a big production?
Well, I had Pain and Gain, which was my first film. And so that was really that was the one that kind of thrust me into the okay, sink or swim mentality, because it was Michael Bay as a director who has a very reputation is a little volatile, just put it that way. Screamer on stage, and he was nothing but nice. Came up, joked around with me. If you've seen the film, I have to eat these pigs in a blanket. They were the most disgusting thing in the world. To the point where I thought I was picking the bush out where I was going to go throw up at, because they were that bad. And then my scene was with Mark Wahlberg, Dwayne Johnson, and Anthony Mackie. So that was kind of my first, real taste, but I only had a couple lines. And then after that, there you go. That's from Ballers. But after that, it was Burn Notice was really the big piece, because it was a really meaty scene. It was one-on-one dialogue, and so that was the one that really gave me a taste of what it's like to really feel the nerves on set. Because that was a fun one.
You mentioned Ballers, 24 Legacy, Burn Notice, Graceland. I mean, we could go on and on. The list is long. By the way, Mr. Mercedes is in my queue to watch on. I think it's on HBO Max now or Peacock. It's on one of them.
Yeah, I think it's on Peacock.
Peacock, yeah.
Yeah, that was a great one to do as well. That was really fun. We shot that.
But
go ahead.
Go ahead. I was just going to say the thing that I heard obviously got a lot of attention. Bloodline had huge success and was a big hit for Netflix, and that was a regular role for you. It was a recurring part. You were in, I don't know, maybe 9 or 10 episodes of that.
Yeah, 9 episodes. For the Bloodliners who are watching, thank you for everything you've done over the, with that series. There's people coming in and finding it. Here a few years later, it's still not on DVD anywhere in the U.S. So it's still one of those things that, is on Netflix. If you want to watch it, it takes about 4 episodes to really get into it. But once you do, it's a slow burn after that. Kyle Chandler, Enrique Murciano plays, is in there. And I just talked to him a couple nights ago. He's doing well. He's up in North Georgia, I think, shooting something now. But Kyle Chandler, I met Ben Mendelsohn, had a little piece with him. It was a great series. It was great writing, and then unfortunately the tax incentives in Florida kind of folded up, and they decided to shut down production. It was supposed to go 6 seasons, and we ended up only doing 3.
Yeah, and you were exactly right. I started it once and only made it through a couple of episodes and lost interest. And then somebody suggested to me, no, give it a chance. And so I went back and got through it. And then I ended up being addicted. I loved that series. And I hated to see when it ended because I knew you could tell that there was more story to be told.
Yeah, a lot more story to be told. I wish I had been able to hear what the plans were for that, but alas, I have to wait just like anybody else to find out if it ever is revealed by some miracle. But yeah, it was a great series. Please watch it because I need the checks badly.
One thing I noticed too, and it's true in Bloodline, but it's true in a lot of the series that you tend to be cast as a cop or a DEA agent or some sort of kind of authority figure.
The authority figure. Um, I do get that a lot. If you look at my demo reel, my first 2 pieces are I'm playing a Navy captain in the first clip. I just did that for The Right Stuff on Disney Plus, and then the next piece is me and Anne Hathaway, and I'm playing an Army general. So yeah, it's I get DEA, FBI, beat cop, attorney, doctor, pretty much anybody of authority. But there's a few pieces in there where I've got a new film coming out called The Ravine, where I'm not anybody of I'm not a cop or anything of any heavy. I'm just a friend of the family.
You would you say that Bloodline is probably your most enjoyable thing that you've done, or because I can tell that that's something that really hit home with you?
Yeah, when you get into a situation where you're doing multiple episodes with people, you really get to know them. You get to hang out. Um, it becomes more of a family. So yeah, that one is. I latched onto the Bloodliners, who's the fan page on Facebook, and I never looked back. I love seeing what those guys comment on and seeing their perspective, watching it as viewers. But yeah, you get to create a family. Like I said, I talked to Enrique. You still kind of keep in touch, every once in a while and see what your friends are up to. But they're all great. I mean, Hillbilly Elegy was fantastic to film. The Banker was fantastic. I mean, you're working with Samuel L. Jackson and Ballers was fantastic. I mean, I get to give Dwayne Johnson the back rub. That was where do you go from there?
Yeah, yeah, it's nowhere left to go. And the ironic thing is, out of all these things that you've done, perhaps the thing where you were seen by the most people was the commercial, the Super Bowl commercial.
And nobody knew who I was. My mom
Yeah.
didn't even recognize me. Sorry, I'm sitting in a chair that I keep sliding down on. Yeah, it was. It was funny how that came about. My agent, I have another agent in Louisiana who only handles Louisiana, and she called me up and said, you have to drop what you're doing and you have to go right now. You have I think it was a 5 p.m. audition time in New Orleans. And I'm like, there's no way I'm going to make it. It's 6-hour drive. And she said, it's the Super Bowl. It's the Budweiser Super Bowl, lad. You have to go do this. And I'm thinking, okay, I'll get a few tickets. And then it dawned on me that I lose an hour going over there. So I literally went to my desk, dropped my keys or grabbed my keys, didn't turn off my computer, walked out the door, grabbed some gas and hit the road. And I made it in about 5 minutes time to spare. They brought us all in and did the audition and these things you're on pins and needles hoping you get something, but I got a call and they said you got the part. And so I went over and they made me look like Eberhard Anheuser and we shot. And unfortunately, I caught the flu when I got over there. And I woke up that morning with a sore throat. And I thought, I got a sore throat and I don't have a ton of talking, so it'll be all right. By the time we got done shooting, which is like 14 hours later, I sounded like a seal. I could barely stand up. They took me back to my hotel. I got in the car and I tried to drive home, and it was crash. I just pulled over and slept for like 2 hours trying to. And I ended up staying another night because I was so sick. But got home and yeah, full blown flu.
But it was all worth it, right?
Boy, it was all worth it. And Budweiser's not in the Super Bowl this year. I did some
Yeah.
interviews. I did an interview with the Lexington Herald, and they said, what are your plans for the Super Bowl? And I'm like, I wish I had some Hall's beer cheese because that's like my favorite, snack food as far as chips are concerned. Dip, I should say. And they were great. They're like, hey, call us up, we'll get you some. And so I called up, ordered some. Of course, I paid for it, but. Yeah, it was awesome to be able to sit back and watch the game, and it was done, and I went, okay, good. Now let's see if the Falcons can pull this off because they blew it.
Yeah.
Great experience.
I was thinking that since they weren't doing a new commercial this year, maybe they could just run that one again and redo that.
That would be awesome. That commercial got a lot. It got a lot of views. They released it prior to the Super Bowl, if you remember, because it was a very sticky issue with, depending on how you looked at it, pro-immigration, anti-immigration, and it was just, it was neither. The storyline for the commercial was months prior to the election. It had nothing to do with any political side whatsoever. And of course, you can't tell the general public that because they think everything's, it's all political. But yeah, it was great. A great piece to shoot.
You mentioned having the flu and working through that. Tell me about how life has been in the pandemic for Bill Kelly. Obviously, the acting jobs have been not as many. The whole thing shut down for a while. What kind of things did you do during the pandemic to keep busy?
Well, of course, the radio station stuff. Yeah, you're right. The auditions pretty much came to a standstill. I shot one thing in 2020, and that was an episode of a reboot of the TV series Leverage, which is coming out on IMDb TV this year. So I shot one thing, and I mean, I've had a handful of auditions, but it's starting to pick up now. But it was just, the normal, just like anybody else. Go to your regular job, our real job, and work that and survive it just like anybody else.
Yeah, you did some stuff to help out some local restaurants down there in the area too, right?
I did. I was trying to come up with a way of how I could help, or drive local business. And so I came up with an idea of doing Facebook Live, called it Table for One. And I was sitting in a parking lot of a restaurant here and I just opened the back of my 4Runner and said, I'm going to use it as my table. And I know the owner, so he came out and he's like, what you up to? And I said, would you mind if I set up a table out here next time I come? And I was just kind of joking around. And then as I'm eating and going, well, that's not a bad idea. So I did a series of shows, Facebook Live shows, where I just went to local restaurants, local places. And I did a golf course where we went out to, one of the holes on the golf course and shot there. And it was just inviting people to come out and shop local. Local businesses need your support. So get out there and knock it dead. Do as much as you can to help those local businesses survive.
Absolutely. Let's. I'll get back to the acting in just a minute, but I want to talk a little bit about your EKU experience. And obviously, growing up in Richmond and spending all the time here, EKU was an easy choice for you. But you came in originally, I think, wanting to be an architect. Is that right?
I started as an architect major, and then I realized I stink at math. I didn't have algebra. I took geometry in high school, but, because I flunked algebra, to be honest. Wasn't successful at it. And I looked at it and said, do I really want to sit behind a table or at a drafting table and drawing houses and buildings all day, or do I want to be outside, experiencing life? And I'd always wanted to be a DJ. So I went and changed my majors, and my advisor looked at me and said, you're 2 years away from an architecture degree. Why are you doing this? And I said, I think I'd be doing it later in life if I didn't do it now anyway. So, but his experience at EKU, It was great. Back then it was so much different, um, from what I understand, from what I see on social media, that the downtown experience at Richmond, going to First Street, all the restaurants and all the stuff that used to go on, sitting on the hill, um, watching Roy Kidd and the Colonels play at Hanger Field. It was great. I even living in Richmond, I decided I was going to go and experience the dorm. So I lived in Dupree, one of the twins they just tore
Yeah.
down,
Yeah.
and I was in the very top room, the very top floor, the very last room. And so I lived there for a couple of semesters, and yeah, just had a real good time.
Yeah. And you ended up, somehow you ended up on the gymnastics team, right?
I did. I took a basic PE course called Rings Parallel and the High Bar, and me and the pommel horse got along really well. And so I asked the coach if there's any way I could get more time, and he said, "Well, you can become manager of the team." And I'm thinking, manager of the team, okay, fine. So my job was basically to go pick up the laundry and drop it off, and then if we had a meet, I'd dust the chalk off the players and the gymnasts rather. And so it was kind of that. Oh, yeah, I wish I could
Oh
say
my.
that. It's hard now, but
Yeah.
I worked, during the summer. I lived in the town, so I lived in Richmond. So I pretty much was in the gym every day early, and then going to work after that, and worked my butt off on just the pommel horse. And then made the team, never got to compete, and ended up quitting for a girl. That
Uh,
taught me a lot. Don't quit your dreams because of somebody else's needs. And so yeah, that's the one regret. I quit the team for a girl, and she dumped me, and yeah, so I never got to be in that uniform right there. So it's about as far as it got. But I made the team. Kind of.
you made the team. It started as a manager or a guy just in a class, and you ended up on the team. I've got a surprise for you in just a minute. But first, I think we've got a couple of questions from some of our viewers, and I do want to get to those and make sure we hit those. First up from Mahela, I think Amber Watts wants to know if you have any advice for someone who's living in Kentucky and starting out and wants to get started in the acting industry. What advice do you have?
Get in front of a camera as much as possible. It's funny because I have a lot of friends. I have a lot of people. I've got relatives even that want to get started, and a lot of people think, "Let me go find an agent, and they'll get me the work." And it just doesn't work that way. If you find an agent and he wants to sign you, and he said, "Oh, I'll make you a star," run, because it just doesn't work that way. You got to put in the time, even if it's just there's high school, there's college, drama classes, there's community theater, there's people in all the time looking for people just to shoot fun videos with. And today with TikTok and YouTube and everything, I mean, the iPhone is a great camera, but get in front of a camera, and even if it's doing monologues, acting out with your friends, but get material. And then once you get a nice body of material together, then you go look for go look for an agent, see if there's some type of future there. But yeah, get in front of a camera and play with it.
Well, and you particularly have enjoyed working with students, I know, and have done some short films and some stuff with some of the student productions, haven't you?
Absolutely. I've got, the FSU theater school, film school rather. There's another part. It's like the Florida State Broadcasting Department. I did a film for them. I think that's the one that was based on like a Bob Rossi type of character. It's called Happy Trees. Um, and then a friend of mine, Fred Rabath, if you could look him up on YouTube, he's got some just incredible film work that he and I have done numerous films together. Actually, we just did one not too long called The Waiting, that you can look that one up pretty soon, and you should be able to check it out. But it's student films, it's independent stuff. We did. There's a great website, by the way, called Tongal. I think it's Tongal, and that's what I call competition commercials. So Doritos and Pepsi first started it out with Crash the Super Bowl, where they gave Joe Public the opportunity to make a commercial that could have the potential to end up in the Super Bowl. So they took these student filmmakers, independent filmmakers, they gave them the basic outline, they gave them the materials to make a commercial with as far as the graphics and the music beds to use, and then you used your creativity to come up with the commercials. And you never know. You could win money, but you could end up at a Super Bowl. And now that's taken off into, now that Pepsi and Dorito are not doing a Super Bowl like that anymore. You know, they're not doing that particular thing. Crest, and I think I've done Crest and Radio Shack, and I think we did Doritos, just a ton of those fun competition commercials. So that's a great thing to do, to get some experience and possibly, you know, get some money out of it. Money's
Yeah. Question from Dana Moore wants to know if you are doing any podcasts.
You know, I'm not, mainly because I really don't have a lot of time to do it. I've got friends that are, you know, wanting me to do one. I just don't know that much about it. And I have my hands in so many different things right now. I'm really trying to streamline stuff, but I've been on a couple podcasts, like to do them, but I just don't know very much about, you know, what I'd be doing. What's there for me to talk about?
Lucy Riffle wants to know, did you feel any relation to the people in Hillbilly Elegy?
You know, I really did. And Hillbilly Elegy got a lot of criticism from people that they were angry at the film for not really portraying a lot of, you know, there's better story. I read one the other day, somebody saying there's success stories that you could tell about. But for a lot of people, my family included, we lived that. My dad was from Jolo, West Virginia. We were in the coal country of Jolo. You pulled up to my grandmother's house. It was carved out of a mountain. My grandfather worked in a coal mine. I slept in the basement floor, which was right next to the coal chute where the coal was. So it was tough times, you know. I knew a lot of people that lived that life and had those issues. Is it every story? Of course not. But this is just one particular story. So yeah, I did relate a lot with it. You know, swim holes. And when I was a kid in Richmond, we'd go down to Silver Creek and jump in the creek. If there was a pond nearby, we would go fish in the pond. And that's what you did. You got up, you rode your bikes, just like young JD did. He rode his bike all over the mountain. We rode all over Richmond. I mean, you got up Saturday morning, jumped off. And so, yeah, I have a lot of relation to the family in Hillbilly Elegy. It was I consider it a great film.
The next question comes from Kellyanne Clary, and she wants to know, how many roles do you have in post-production in the pipeline right now?
Hi, Kellyanne. I have one in post-production right now is Leverage. And then I've got one coming out on April 2nd, I do believe, called The Ravine, which is a great film. It's based on a book. Robert Pascuzzi and his wife Kelly, fantastic people. Looks like it's going to be a good film with Tori Polo, Eric Dane, Kyle Lauder. Should be a good. Leslie Uggams is in it. But so right now, just two projects that are waiting on to come out.
Let's talk a little bit briefly again about your days at WEKY, because that's where you and I first crossed paths. What are some things?
Man. Sing the jingle.
You remember the big long Christmas jingle? I can still sing the Christmas jingle.
I don't, but you'll probably ring the bell.
I'm not going to sing it because I cannot sing.
Go ahead. You can't open a can of worms, you know.
No. People will tune out immediately if I start singing. But the great thing about radio is it's fun. And that's what I think you and I both experienced and how we fell in love with it. But talk a little bit about your memories from WEKY. A lot of people launched their careers working at WEKY.
They really did. Rhonda, this friend of mine, Rhonda Weddle, worked at EKY right after I left. She went to high school at Central, and the guy that moved down here, Frank Ranicky, started his career. And I don't know if we were on the air when I mentioned that, but he was legendary sportscaster here in Florida. I'm not sure who else. Again, Greg Stottlemyre, of course. Yeah, so a lot of people. The things I learned about it was fun to go in and crack people up who were trying to be serious on the air. So you would all the time try to make them laugh, and making Greg Stottlemyre laugh, and you and Rob Ellis was a great DJ who started at WEKY. But it was great, to be able to go in and make people laugh. I don't know if you ever had this dream, but to this day, I have what we call the radio dream. And you're a DJ and you're on the air and you can't find the music. You can't get the record to queue up. You know what I'm talking about, Dan?
Absolutely. I still have the dream.
I still have the dream.
Or I'm in the back of the studio and the record is ending and I don't have the next one queued up yet. And I mean, I still have those kind of, and they just creep into your dreams out of nowhere.
Right. I think all of us had what we called the bathroom song.
Yes.
Which was, if you had to go to the restroom, you had to put something long on, because we played a lot of songs from the 50s, 60s. And they were, most of the ones back in the 50s, 60s were like 2-3 minutes long, rather. Some were like 2 minutes and 38 seconds. So you had a select few songs, like Sweet Judy Blue Eyes was like 4 minutes and 27 seconds. And you know how long they are to this day because you're used to it. Hey Jude was 6
Hey
minutes.
Jude.
Yeah.
Derek and the Dominoes, Layla was another one.
Was another one. So we all had our bathroom songs, taken it. When you're a DJ back in that day, you had to be licensed to do that. So when you got that FCC license, which was really just filling out a card, you were special. You still have your license?
I still do. It's in a box somewhere, but I still have it.
But you learn as a young DJ that the sweet, sexy voice on the phone never looks like.
Oh, absolutely. Well, when the word got out that you were going to be on the show tonight, some of your old buddies from WEKY reached out and they said, "Oh my gosh, I haven't seen Bill Kelly in years." So I got a little surprise for you tonight. You mentioned cool. Greg Stottlemyre.
Yeah.
We have Greg Stottlemyre is here with us. Greg, come on in. Hey, and his partner in the newsroom was Stu Johnson. You remember Stu?
Yeah.
Stu is with us. Come on in, Stu.
That's funny.
Hey, Bill.
Hey, haven't seen you guys in forever. Greg, I've seen you before on Facebook, but Stu, nice to see you, man.
Good to see you too, Bill. Hey, Dan, I got something right off the top here. So here we are, 40 minutes into the show, and I think you haven't asked Bill to do an early 1980s ID break from WEKY.
Oh my gosh!
Can you do it?
1340 WEKY. That was Derek and the Dominoes. It's 72 degrees outside. Slight chance of showers coming up later on today. Greg Stottlemyre with the news, followed by Stu Johnson with sports. Right now, here's Elvis Presley and whatever he sings.
Yeah, exactly.
Good deal. You forgot to say the $1 Million Hot Wax Weekend.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There was a program director in Lexington that I worked for at WFMI that started the $1 Million Hot Wax Weekend over there. We had it at EKY, and he did it at FMI as well. He may have worked at EKY, but anyway, he came down to Florida and worked for us, and I'll be darned, he did the same thing. $1 Million Hot Wax.
$1 Million Hot Wax Weekend.
Yeah.
I dreaded that.
I remember trying to make Stottlemyre screw up in the newsroom.
I could do that on my own.
I remember making Stu lose it to the point of it was just hilarious. He was just crying one day because I was messing with him and I can't remember what it was, but I will never forget. He's trying to read this story of the triple murder somewhere, and he
that slips my mind, Bill. That just slips my mind. Oh shoot, it was a good time. I guess always the reporter in me. I've got a question for you. So the your years as and I still say jock. I guess can you say, you're going to say disc jockey, you can say jock, here's the jock, right?
Yeah.
Those years compared to film, film would be more lucrative, I'd imagine. But what have you enjoyed more?
Well, I don't think I'd be in film if it weren't for being in radio, because people ask me, well, how was the transition? It's like, it was easy, because radio, you guys know, you're acting when you're on the radio. There was always a motto of, you hang your emotions on the control room door when you come in. I went through a divorce on the radio once, where, my ex-wife, my wife at the time, and she and I were talking about divorce, and I'm like, yeah, baby, I understand. Hang on a second. Hey, it's and then I'm right back on the phone going, oh, so you want the dog, huh? Okay. But yeah, so the transition was a little bit easier, since I was in radio, but both have been great. I've got buddies here that, through their radio careers, and it's amazing why more DJs don't write books, because wouldn't make a lot of movies or turn those into screenplays, because there'd be a lot of stories.
Yeah. Well, I was counting up the thinking this morning, and I was at WEKY for 3 years, from 81 to 84. Were you there about 83 or so? 82 or 83?
Probably. Well, let's see. I started in 81, and probably was there, I think 81, somewhere in there. I lose track of time. It just seems like a million years ago.
Yeah.
When I started.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Well, there were
remember.
There were 15 jocks during the time I was there, and I thought I had tonight was, there were a lot of disc jockeys then, but boy, today there's not, compared to that era to now.
Yeah, now one of the reasons I got off the air was they came in and said, oh, we have this great technology called voice tracking, and means we can get, somebody from another market to do it. So, it's a lot different deal. And I think if they ever went back, would have an issue with trying to find people to train because back then you worked, not at DKY when we shut off at sunset, but most stations you started doing weekends, and then you moved to overnights, midnight to 6 a.m. And then maybe you'd get a nighttime slot and then move to middays. And so it was a big progression of trying to go from one slot to another, and trying to get, trying to work your way up. So it'd be difficult to find people who have, can come in and do it, because you'd have to put them in morning drive immediately if it were small local stations.
I miss the personalities, though, boy. I mean, there's lots of personality, including you. I mean, everybody has their own personality as a DJ.
Yeah. We, I think we had a lot of great people to emulate. You listen to Larry Lujak. We had Spike at the mic, and all these different personalities in major markets that we listened to. And the thing I want them to do is bring back the satin jackets that we all had in the 80s.
just DJs, not news people, right, Stu?
What's that?
I said just the DJs and the satin jackets, not us news people.
Yeah, not the news people.
But
Hey, Bill, did you work at both Jerry Lane and then out on the north side, or did you just work at the old cramped Jerry Lane studio?
I worked only at Jerry Lane. Yeah,
okay.
Because
because we moved out to the better studio. I worked. Stu was under me, and I worked Stu so hard he had to lay down on a cot between his news shifts. I've never seen. There was no room for a cot at Jerry Lane.
Yeah,
I remember the cot.
Pretty cramped.
That didn't help very much either. It was rough.
Yeah, but back then it was live. You hung it all out there. You knew if you were you said something on the air, that was okay. Well, it's too late now.
Yeah.
We used to laugh when there was a lady, and God rest her soul, she's long gone, but she was a go-getter for the Red Cross. You ever remember when we would do that 30-minute show, public affairs, that we would tape in our little cramped newsroom? We'd bring Margie Hillard in. Do you ever remember when she would come? Yeah. We literally were in a closet with a wire machine in there, Stu. Do you remember that? It was so loud in there, like sitting beside a train. And then we could look through the window to see Bill or whoever the DJ was on the air.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to remember some of the morning show DJs that we had back then, and I can't.
We had Gene Hardy. Gene was
Gene
in the
Hardy,
mornings
yeah.
probably.
That's right, Gene
Oh
Hardy.
yeah. Gene was on mornings. I think that's all he ever did was mornings. Really.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Tony Tabor did mornings, I think maybe for a while, but he was gone, I believe, by the time Bill got there.
Now Tony was there.
Oh.
Yeah, he was there.
Was he?
Mhm.
Okay.
How we
Yeah.
crossed? If I was, came in on about the time he exited, but yeah, it was. We had like 2 salespeople and AM radio. People actually listened to the AM radio stations back then.
I just thought that we haven't won a national football championship since Bill left.
Yeah,
That's
come
true.
down here,
Get you back.
Yes. That's right.
Yeah, I remember EKU being on television for the first time, and we were like, "Oh my gosh, we're on TV!"
Craig Sager was on the sidelines that night, right? I think.
Yeah.
I think he was. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
It's a big night.
that's TBS.
TBS. He did have
Yeah.
a Thursday night game against Murray State. That was probably one of the greatest games. Well, it may be the greatest game in EKU football history. Just the drama of the game.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Was that I should know this, but was that the game that Steve Bird caught like 3 or 4 key ones? One, I never forget. I don't know if it's that game, but your call of it, your voice went to this octave and then it went up about 15 octaves after that.
Yeah.
After he broke away from somebody and went on further down the sideline.
Yeah. I actually found a tape of that, and during the pandemic, I was able to dub it over to digital. So it was it was a good moment. Yeah.
I was looking through some stuff here not too long ago, and I have no idea where I put it, but I found one of the old WEKY pens, and then I found a check stub.
Oh wow! Did it have the circle?
There was
the circle around it from the Y like around it.
Yeah. Yep. That was it.
I remember that.
Yeah, it was a brown.
probably wasn't a very large amount.
Yeah, that check was pretty pitiful. I'm like, yeah. Of course, that was 1951, so a little bit different timeline there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Stu, Greg, thank you guys for stopping by. We're getting close to the end of the show, but I know it was nice to have you guys pop in and bring back some memories of the good old days at WEKY. And
awesome. Good seeing both of you.
Nice seeing you, Bill.
Proud of you, Bill. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Take care.
All right. Stu
Bye-bye.
Johnson, Greg Stottlemyre. Of course, Greg, the voice of the Colonel. Stu Johnson still covers the Capitol for WEKU FM, and those guys are both still working. Bill Kelly is our guest tonight on the Alumni Spotlight Series. And as we kind of start to wind down the show a little bit, Bill, one of the things we'd been talking about your days at EKU, just as you think back and look back on those days, what are some things that you learned and some experience maybe that you got at EKU that has helped you as you've gone on in life?
Well, I think it was a different time back then where we had, and I hope we get back to that, where people had differences and you worked them out and you talked. Political spectrums and different things that are going on in the world today, we sat down and talked about them. And we hung out with people who were different from us, and we weren't on social media all the time. You had to get up the courage to go and ask. This is so dating me, and I know I'm old as dirt, but you had to get up the courage to go get up in front of a room and do a speech or do a presentation and ask somebody out. But it was just a great time. It was time back then. We had the best band.
And did we lose Bill?
Hands down, we had the best bands. My first concert was.
Oh, there you are. Now you're back.
Went away,
there you are.
Hopefully you're hearing me. There you are. My first concert was at Alumni Coliseum, and it was Bo Donaldson and the Haywoods.
Yes, Billy, Don't Be a Hero.
That was it. That was their only hit. Billy, Don't Be a Hero. They had white jumpsuits on because they were stylish back then, and they had flames, red and blue flames, yellow flames all the way through these things. And I don't know where they got them, but it must be like Bob's bargain bin for jumpsuits, because midway through this, it's sweltering hot in there, and all of these flames just ran down their jumpsuits. So had a great life at EKU, hanging out at the corner. Just, the ravine, going and reading at the ravine and studying there. Winters walking across campus when you thought you were just going to die. Not having central heat and air inside your dorm room, having to open up a window, using a rotary phone in your dorm, not being able to have members of the opposite sex come into your dorm without the door open and feet on the ground. And, it was just a different time, but I think we were a little bit more in tune to each other then, and not so much running around. But, again, I'm dating myself. But it was a great time at EKU. I enjoyed the heck out of it.
So I don't know if you're on any of the social medias, if you have a Twitter account or whatever, but for our folks who want to follow you and kind of keep up with your career, what's some of the best ways they can do that?
I'm on Twitter. It's at Bill Kelly Actor. I'm on Instagram at Bill Kelly Actor. I'm on Facebook. My website is billkelly.net, where you can see clips and stuff like that. You can look me up on IMDb. Join the fun, because I need more friends, people to hang out with.
Bill, you got married recently too, so congratulations on that, right?
Thank you. Yes, my beautiful bride, her name is Nancy. She is the love of my life. She's the best. I mean, she's just the best. She's the one that I'm going, you're it. You're the love of my life. We're going to spend forever together. But she's the one that helps me on my auditions. She reads the other lines so I can do my stuff. And she's the one that says, no, you can do better. Do it again. Do it again. Do it again. But she's, I give her my success.
Well, congratulations. I know that just happened, I think, this past year. So,
yep.
Bill, thanks for being with us tonight. It's been great catching up and seeing you again, and certainly congratulations on all of the success. You've made us back here in Richmond and at EKU proud. I love turning on the TV and seeing you in something, and look forward to seeing a lot more.
I greatly appreciate that, and thanks for all the support. Kentucky is my heart, and I'll be back in Richmond soon and come visit, and I'll let you know when I get there. I'll probably be down to the Family Dog. Oh, wait, that's not there. O'Reilly's. No. Wait, that's not there either. No. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. Bill Kelly, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Great to have you, and have a great evening.
Have a good one, Dan. Appreciate it.
All right, that's Bill Kelly. You've seen him in Bloodline, Ballers, 24. We talked about it all. He's done a lot. Now, living and working full-time in Tallahassee, Florida, and working for Clear Channel Communications. But the acting thing is really doing well, and who knows, eventually that may be his full-time gig. We thank Bill for being with us tonight. Also, thanks to Greg Stottlemyre and Stu Johnson for popping in tonight and surprising Bill. And also, I want to say special thanks to Steve Greenwell and Alex Hanneman, my guys behind the scene who are pushing all the buttons and making everything happen tonight. A couple of things to tell you about. Again, Steve Crump will be our guest on February 9th. That is our next Alumni Spotlight. Steve was recently inducted into the Kentucky Journalism Hall of Fame, has had a distinguished career in radio and television. February 9th, and then 2 weeks later, February 23rd, Gail Dent, who's had an equally impressive career with the NCAA. She will be with us on February 23rd. And then the next Colonel's Kitchen will come up on February 17th, and we will feature Kentucky Hot Brown and a special Valentine's Day dessert on that episode. But that will do it for us tonight. Certainly thank you for tuning in, and encourage you to keep in touch with us at alumni.eku.edu. Find out about all the happenings with EKU and your alma mater. That'll wrap it up. I'm Dan McBride. Thanks for watching, and go Big E.